Hi guys, my name's Emma and let's talk spooky stuff. Firstly, thank you guys so much for your reaction on my last horror movie themes video. This is going to be a part 2. We're going to continue on the conversation. I'm going to talk about several more themes that are absolutely amazing and why. Of course, I went through your comments and you did have really good points. A couple of them reminded me of some of my favorite themes that I totally left out last time. And don't worry, we covered the one that you were all screaming about. If you have not watched the first video, please go back and watch it because it's really important that you know all that information. But in saying that, my name is Emma. I'm also known as Spookyastronauts. Here on YouTube, I do 2 new videos every single week talking about horror movies, thrillers, anything creepy, crawly. I love that kind of stuff. Subscribe and let's jump into our first epic movie theme song. It's The Shining. Nothing says dread like those striking chords for the main title of The Shining. Directed by Stanley Kubrick and based on the Stephen King novel of the same name, The Shining is about a family who move into an isolated hotel with a violent past. The main title for The Shining is also known as Dies Irae, which translates to the Day of Wrath. The origin is a medieval Latin sequence that dates back to the 13th century. A sequence is a chant or hymn that is sung typically by a gospel, this one being commonly used in funeral mass. This sequence describes Judgment Day with the trumpet sounds summoning souls and casting sinners into eternal flames. From here, the chant was set to music and often used in funeral services, which, I mean, not to judge, but not really the ideal way of sending someone off, reminding everyone of eternal flames. Although the theme does suit the movie's timeless feel, I don't think the meaning behind it really links up. It's a very common piece that has been used in a lot of soundtracks, including Escape from Suburbia, which is on the original Poltergeist soundtrack. Next up, it's happening, guys. Let's talk about Psycho. Before this piece, American composer Bernard Herrmann had written music for The War of the Worlds and Citizen Kane. He had worked closely with Hitchcock before, writing music for Vertigo and North by Northwest. So when he was asked to work on Psycho, he was well prepared for the challenge. Alfred Hitchcock's classic horror thriller Psycho is about a woman who is on the run and stays in a motel run by a man who has a strange relationship with his mother. But of course, as we know, not everything is as it seems. Even though this is known as a classic, the budget was significantly cut back. This is also why the film is in black and white, because they were trying to save costs. So Herrmann, working with Les, wanted to keep the song simple and sharp, just like the film. So he used what he had to his advantage, using violins in the opposite way that they're thought of. When we think of violin music in Hollywood, we usually think of romance or sadness. Herrmann used the violin to create panic and tension, something we would see used for inspiration in the years to come. Of course, this isn't just used in the theme, but in the famous shower scene when the murder takes place. It's clean, simple, and straight to the point. Sheer terror. When we take a step back and listen to the main theme for the film, it pairs these heightened moments of terror with calm and slow dips. People have often referred to this as a metaphor for Norman Bates' split personas. One moment he couldn't hurt a fly, and the next, well, you know. A couple of you commented on my last video that you really liked the theme song for Reanimator, but it's really just a reworked version of Psycho, and they've admitted to this. It was actually meant to be in the credits for the film, but they forgot to add it in, and then it was gonna cost 10 grand for them to redo the titles, so they said no. It's a little bit awkward. They did not give credit, but they say it's a homage, but it's clearly just the same theme song, just reworked. So I didn't think I'd add that into this list because it's just too similar. But the next film was something that you guys commented on in my last video that I was so happy you brought up because I can't believe I forgot to add this, and it's Saw. Hello, Zep. I would say this is less of an opening title song, but more of a reoccurring theme throughout the whole Saw franchise. Directed by James Wan, Saw is about 2 men who wake up in a deadly trap, where they are forced to play a sick game by an infamous killer known as Jigsaw. The song is named after the character Zepp Hindle, who appears to be in control of the whole operation, but really it's a nod to him just being another player in the game. The title Hello Zepp infers that it's Jigsaw and his famous tapes and how he starts them by saying, "Hello, Zepp. I want to play a game with you." That was the worst impression of Jigsaw. The song was originally written for, spoiler alert, the reveal, where we see that Zepp is not the mastermind. In fact, he is just another puppet in the game. But the song became so popular that it is used throughout the whole movie, and in fact, it's used throughout the whole franchise. It's been remixed so many different times. Every movie, they add a little bit extra to the mix, and they also make it a little bit longer. The theory behind the piece of music is that the composer wanted to work hand in hand with the reveal. The song is meant to feel like it's being played by a string quartet with their backs facing you. Then all of a sudden they swing around and the concentrated sharp sound is in your face. Little reverb and intense clarity. It reflects the true reveal of the film when we finally see the flashbacks and all of the missing information. The truth is right in front of us after being hidden the whole film. The unique thing about Hello Zepp is it's unlike any of the other music used in the film. All of the other music uses samples of industrial sounds. This is to suit the environment where Saw puts his games. He's always in those big warehouses and it's always clunky material that's quite industrial, to lack of a better word. Although Hello Zepp does incorporate a lot of industrial sounds, it does sound very different to the other music in this movie. Unlike the other music, it uses instruments to make it sound out of place, like it's not meant to be inside an industrial warehouse, including the cello, viola, and violins. It's the masterpiece of everything coming together, and I would argue it's definitely associated with one of the biggest reveals in modern horror. Okay guys, I warned you, I did miss this in part 1, but thank God we have a part 2. Let's talk about The Exorcist and Tubular Bells. Directed by William Friedkin, The Exorcist is about a 12-year-old that starts to display dramatic changes in her behavior, leading her mother to believe she may be possessed. Her mother now must turn to 2 priests to save her daughter's soul. This one is insane because I had no idea that Tubular Bells wasn't actually made for The Exorcist. It was an existing piece of music that was purchased to be put in the film. But the crazy thing about it is it was to replace what they had already commissioned, which was this intense music that you can see in the original trailer that apparently was just too jarring and just too much for audiences. There was even rumors that people ran out after seeing the trailer and vomited. They scrapped the music after the feedback and they replaced it with Tubular Bells, which went from being jarring and so intense to kind of this creepy, eerie, but mysterious music. Tubular Bells was composed by Oldfield when he was only 19 years old. He recorded and played almost all the instruments. Musically, the piece is so unnerving because it uses an unsymmetric metering, just like what we spoke about in part 1 about Halloween. The song fit in with the theme of the film perfectly, with the music using a church organ-like sound, linking the audience into the idea of church and salvation, but in an eerie way, making it seem dark and unnerving. This music was never intended for this film, but now it's pretty much all it's associated with. And a funny fact about this is Oldfield never saw the film. He thought it might be too scary. I don't think he's a horror movie fan. The next film isn't exactly strongly horror, but I think you guys will allow it. It's one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, and it's David Lynch's Elephant Man. Directed by David Lynch, The Elephant Man is loosely based on the life of John Merrick, a disfigured man who was treated poorly while working in a sideshow. Man, do I love this theme, and it just completely elevates the film. As the name suggests, the song is constructed of shaky bells that sound like vintage carnival music. While the instruments paint a story, the tune itself almost sounds like a music box, incredibly similar to the one in Phantom of the Opera. John Morris played with a childlike tune in a strange presentation to make some that feels unnerving yet nostalgic. This is very similar to what we talked about in part 1, nursery rhymes, but this one is more fit to the theme of the film, which is more sideshow circus. The result works perfectly paired with the smoke and mirrors of a Lynchian film. It's simple yet mysterious, and it's asking you to take a look behind the mask at who the Elephant Man really is. I've said it before and I'll say it again, if you have not watched The Elephant Man, do it. You will not be sorry. Best David Lynch film ever, in my opinion. But enough about me. Let's go back to the classics and let's talk about Friday the 13th. Directed by Sean S. Cunningham, Friday the 13th is about a summer camp that turns into a living nightmare when a group of camp counselors are killed off one by one. The composer revealed in 2009 that the famous distorted words in the film are indeed inspired by the Pamela Voorhees line, "Kill her mummy." He was inspired by the fact that Pamela was hearing voices in her head, Jason's voice, and he wanted to work that into the music. And also, in a way, he was revealing the whole twist. He repeated the sounds ki and ma into a microphone and ran it through what is called an echoplex machine. This was to get the defining echo that the song is well known for. Another reason that this soundtrack really stood out is that it only really uses 2 chords throughout the entire film, apart from the song in the diner and the end. They did this to make the music sound concentrated yet purposeful, tying it into itself and giving Camp Crystal Lake its own feel. Although the theme itself feels unique, it's undeniable that it uses moments that are inspired by the psycho theme. The violin shrieking reminds audiences of a knife stabbing, and they really play with this throughout the main song. The song is very messy, but it's no surprise with such a violent, action-packed film. I'm gonna end now, but I'm gonna take you guys out with just a favorite that, again, isn't considered strong horror, and it is another Lynchian favorite. When you guys mentioned this in the comments, I thought I might be the only one, but then I realized you guys are also fans of Twin Peaks. I just know it doesn't always get paired into the horror category, but I'm so glad you guys mentioned it because I love this soundtrack so much. I just can't keep away from David Lynch, and although this is not strongly considered horror, I know many of you, just like me, are fans of this one, and if you are, this one's for you. Directed by Mark Frost and David Lynch, the TV show is a murder mystery about an FBI agent that investigates a murder of a young woman in a kooky town called Twin Peaks. The TV show has 2 original seasons, then a movie, and then a follow-up return season from 2007. This soundtrack is unlike anything else on this list. I mean, mainly it's a TV show, but also it has several concentrated songs that are just put on repeat throughout the whole series. Every single episode you hear the same song like twice, and they just run through them depending on what characters are involved in the scenes and the emotions. No other music is involved in the TV show, so you're left kind of feeling trapped, but in a nice, cozy, kooky, whimsical place. And that's why you'll find if you ever hear any of the Twin Peaks songs outside of Twin Peaks, you're just transported there. Lynch would sit next to the composer Angelo Badalamenti describing the town of Twin Peaks. He would say things like, "There's a moon out, some animal sounds in the background, you hear a hoot of an owl, you're in the woods." And in turn, the composer would play whatever he feels suits that theme. And then Lynch would always, without a doubt, tell him, "Great, just slower," and they would slow it down entirely. But the theme song for the film is actually a very different story. The song Falling was recorded a year prior to Twin Peaks. It was actually recorded by the composer and Lynch for an album they were working on called Floating into the Night by Julie Cruz. Badalamenti played the melody of the song as a reference point and actually just put it to the side, and a year later Lynch took it and made it the main theme of Twin Peaks. They recorded the final theme with synth and guitar, and the whole song has a strange, surreal feeling that just transports you away. The soundtrack was placed in several international top 10 charts, including Norway, Sweden, and Australia. With a theme receiving a Grammy, this is possibly one of the best themes to a TV show ever. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you learned something new from this video. If you'd like me to keep doing these videos, let me know. If you guys would like more content from me, please subscribe. I'd really like to have you here. I do 2 new videos every single week, and I'd love for you to be notified when my next one comes up. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you very soon. Stay spooky. Bye.